Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to another Bytes video, and today I'm gonna show you what's happened recently since we did the last video on the adder. So I'm gonna show you what's changed and how I've improved it, and now it has become an ALU. So we're gonna start off with where we left off last time. So this is the adder that I made. It's a ripple carry adder, and basically it works like a normal adder would. If you're new to logical redstone or or you don't understand any of this, I'll basically give you a quick summary of what's going on here. So this is an adder, and as it does, it adds stuff, and it's basically what is used in the thinking of computers. So we can make these in Minecraft using certain things called logic gates, which have two inputs, and based on what those inputs are, if they're on or off, then it will do an electrical signal. So for an adder, it has two functions. If this one is on, then it will go through. If the other one is on, it will go through. And if they're both off, it will not go through. But what will happen is this torch will then activate, and it will stop it from going through. But because this torch is activated, it'll activate this, and it'll carry on to the next column, like in maths. If you do 5 add 5, let's say. If you do 5 add 5, it would carry over and go to the next column. So this is kind of similar to that, except computers can't do it like that. So they have to do it in a certain format. It's called binary. So there's only two numbers, ones and zeros. The 1 is the on, and 0 is off. And how it works for the columns is the first column is 1, and then it will double each time as it goes along. So the first one's 1, then it'll double to 2, and then 2 will double to 4, and 4 will double to 8, and then that's how it works. So if I want to do 3, I do 2 and 1, and then we get 3. And if I wanted to make 10, we do 2 and 8, and then we go, we've got 10. And it can add two numbers, so let's just do these two numbers like this. So the first number we've got is 6, and we're doing 6 add 3, which is 9, because we got 8 and we got 1, so we got 9. There we go. So basically that's how an adder works, and that's what we did last time. And if you're wondering what this is basically what we get as a carry-in. So yeah, I've basically just done a quick summary of what happened in the last video. Now let's move on to what I've done to improve it. So if we want to turn adder into something that can think and do bitwise logic and all sorts of other stuff, and subtraction, division, we need to, first off, let's start with the most simple thing. Let's think of how we can do subtraction. So a way we can do subtraction is we can turn, imagine this like in maths. So imagine this is the top column, this is the number we're adding, so let's do 5. And then, let's say this one's 2. Imagine 5 add 2 would then be 7 at the bottom. And if we're doing subtraction, basically, the B input, all of these B inputs at the bottom, has to be negative. So we can kind of do that by inverting. But if we inverted all of these, then these would be on. So a better way, so then, after we invert all of them, we can simply just turn on the first carry-in, and it would ripple across, and then it won't be, and then all of these won't be off, because it will ripple across all the way. And then yeah, it's got a subtract mode, so I'll show you how I've done that. So we'll go over here, and basically this is the subtract thing, so I'll quickly disable it. This will invert B. So how it works, if we've got a second XOR gate, and basically it'll invert whatever you put, because an XOR gate will only let in, so it'll go through, and it'll go through if one of them is on, and if I turn it on, basically this other input turns on, and because the input turns on even though this one's off, it's kind of inverted. And if I do this, it will go off because it's inverting the inputs. But that isn't fully what we need to make it subtract. So let's quickly turn on the subtract mode. You'll see it'll ripple across, it'll all update, and the final carry out will turn on, and now it will work. So let's do the same thing as before. Let's do 6, take away 3, and we get 3 because this is 2 and this is 1, so we get 3. There we go, we've got subtract mode. And now you have to think, what else do we need to make all of these other modes? So I'm gonna head over to the basically the final finished product. So we had invert B and we have carry in, but a couple other useful things to make other modes. We can add invert A, flood carry, which turns all of these single carries like through this to 1. Then we've got XOR to OR, so basically turns it from an adder to an OR gate. And then we've got right shift, which will shift all the bits to the right. So we'll start off simple. So we've got add mode, which activates none of these, and it'll work like an adder. Now we've got sub mode, same as before. It'll activate invert B and carry in. And we'll do the exact same thing. We'll get the same answer. There we go. Same calculation as before. It works. And if you're wondering, never mind, I'll explain that in a minute. But now we want to do bitwise logic. So we want to basically turn this into like a logic gate for other computer calculations. So the first 2 are very easy. We've got XOR and XNOR. So XOR will invert the B and it'll turn on flood carry. And that will basically turn the whole thing into an XOR gate. So, if I turn it on, it'll go through. If I turn this one on, it'll go through. If I turn them both on, it won't go through. But it also won't carry in. And that's because I've activated both of these. So it won't go through. But if I deactivate it, then it will carry. It'll work. Now we'll do XNOR, which is the same thing except it's only flood carry. So it's the same thing but inverted. So it'll turn off if one of them's on. But if they're both on, it won't turn off. That's how that works. And let's move on to a different mode. Okay. Now we've got OR. So to do OR, we've had to turn basically, we've had to create a new mode. So we've had flood carry, which turns all the carries to 1. Carry in, which is the first carry in. Invert A and invert B. And now, for the other bitwise logics, this is the most important one. XOR to OR. So basically, when I turn this on, it'll activate this line. And when this line's activated, it basically turns the whole thing into an OR gate. And how this works is all these torches will reactivate because of the blue line, and it will constantly power this redstone, which will turn off this torch. And that torch basically stops that torch, because that torch has 2 functions. It stops the signal from going through when there are 2 when both the inputs are on, but it also, when both the inputs are on, it will also turn on, stop the inputs from going through, and it will carry over to the next column. But because that torch is disabled, we basically turn the whole thing into an OR gate, and it works. So, if I do this, it'll be on. If I do this, it'll be on. If I do both, it'll still be on, and it won't carry. So, now that we've got OR, we can make all sorts of stuff. So, the most obvious thing we can do is NOR. It's basically the same thing, but inverted. So, it'll turn off if this one's on. It'll turn off if this one's on. It'll turn off even if both of them are on. There we go. That's the most important. This is the most important one, I think. And is the same. Is very, very complex. Invert A, invert B, flood carry, and XOR to OR. And then this whole thing turns into an AND gate. So it will only turn on if both of them are on. We can do the same thing, except we just invert it. We get an AND. This is the same thing, but we just remove the flood carry. The flood carry kind of acts like an inverter. So if I do that, it won't turn off. If I do this, it won't turn off. If I do both, then it will. And the final implies and implies. This one's kind of confusing. So implies kind of works like, you know what? I'm not going to explain this because it's very confusing. This is the same thing except it's just inverted. And now we've got the final most important one, right shift. So we have add and subtract, but what about multiply and divide? Well, multiply kind of works like add. So if we want to do 2 times 2, we just do both of the inputs and it'll shift it to the left. Because when you shift bits to the left, it will times by 2. But we definitely can't shift it to the right, so we'll try that. So I'll just keep one of the inputs on. So let's do 4 divided by 2. Basically, it will shift all of the bits to the right. So if I turn it off, and if I turn it on, you'll see it will shift. And how it works is it kind of blocks the signal. So normally it will just travel right through. But normally it will just travel right through. But when I turn that on, it will block it by putting a superior signal strength with a comparator. And because of that, it will block it from going there. And it will also unblock it from going here. And that will turn it back on. And it will shift. And there we go. That is the full ALU. It has all of the necessary modes. And from this simple center bit, the adder, we've made a fully functioning ALU, which does loads and loads of calculations. This is just a 4-bit version though, so it's quite small. So we can head over to the 8-bit version, which has a lot more numbers. Because the last one, the final column was, I think it was 8. 1, 2, 4, 8. Yeah, the last one was 8. But the numbers will become really, really big the further you go. Because then 8 goes to 16, 16 goes to 32, 32 goes to 64, and then we get to 128. This is 128, so it's a really big number already just by adding 4 bits. And that is basically the finished product, and that's why, well, that's not the reason why I haven't been uploading so much, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I've explained what has happened to the adder. I'll now go on and explain why I haven't been on. It's because OBS has been having troubles and I haven't been able to kind of fix it for a while, but I have fixed it now, so I'll be back to making videos. And yeah, I guess that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one, which is probably going to be something on Siege. See ya.